Hi, ladies and gentlemen. We are back with the SAP IP Business Talks. Welcome to our live show. Today we have quite a fascinating topic because licensing is in the life science, you can say in every aspect of life science, extremely important. It is the business machine there. It is for R&D, for entering new markets. It is the cornerstone of many business models. And I'm very happy that I have two distinguished guests today with us to explain us how that works, especially how this specific aspect of royalty compliance works. So Tomas Geerkens is with me, and together with Younes Lazrak. So happy to have you here in the show. Hello.
Hi.
Before we start, I would like to say some housekeeping rules for the audience. So this is a live show, and that means we are happy when you write comments under the LinkedIn chat. We will see that here, and I'm happy to bring that to our discussion, that we have also your opinion and perspective here in our meeting. So first, I would like to start with you, Thomas. So it's the third time, I guess, that you are in the show. So you're regular guest now, and yeah, so many aspects of this complex topic, and it's so unbelievably important that I'm very happy that you again and again willing to discuss that and explain it to the audience because it's so important. Thomas, you know my starting question, therefore already. Explain us, how did you came into that field and what you're doing right now in the field of IP?
Absolutely, and yeah, it's a pleasure to be here again, Alex, together with Younes. The third edition, indeed. So the way I got into this field is, as you know, any kid growing up obviously has their dreams of becoming a license compliance specialist, and from there on out, the road was set basically. All joking aside, what happened is I always liked to travel, and I think that's kind of the easiest explanation here. Is that the field of licensing is a very global one. It's a very multicultural, multinational one, and it's just kind of been a fit for me in terms of wanting to work in different geographies with different cultures and making sure that we kind of add our value and add our piece the best we can to that big behemoth, which is licensing. And yeah, apart from that, it was always definitely something that I wanted to be in terms of from a business context, is to make sure that you keep opening up your mind, you keep talking to other cultures as well, and to ensure that we're all part of the added value chain here.
Got you. Thank you. Yeah, something which I should mention is that you are very active also on our platform, and that for everybody who is interested in the field of controlling license, contract compliance, so you run here a full site, a page with the different aspects of this topic, and this is strongly recommended. Meanwhile, we have even a glossary entry. Maybe that's also new for you, that we did it. We have IP compliance. Where is it? IP licensing compliance audits already here in the glossary. So for everybody who wants to learn more, to understand more on this field, you are invited to use this information. So, and now to my second guest, Younes. Thank you very much for joining us. Tell us a little bit, how did you came into that strange field of IP?
Well, actually, when I was younger, quite younger, when I was asked, what will you do when you grow up? I was saying science and business. It was already in my mind when I was something like 15. But then when I did my studies, the last year in my master's degree, we had to do an internship. And I was planning to do this internship in industrial management. But I was not very happy of the internship. And then I had a girl a friend of mine who told me I have to change my internship because I want to join my boyfriend. Could you replace me? And it was in a technology transfer office in Strasbourg. So I started, not knowing what was a technology transfer office, not knowing what was IP, and they were asking me to do marketing. And then I saw plenty of patents, nothing done with these patents. So I told them, "Can I do something with it?" They said, "Try." And actually, I was able to sign a first license within 6 months, and that was the start of my licensing career.
Wow,
Some
brilliant.
25 years ago.
Got you. Wonderful. And so why and explain me, and especially to the audience, why I have you two guys here in the show. What is your interrelationship?
Uh,
You want to take it, Younes, or
Go ahead, go ahead.
I'll give you my version, and then you can tell me if you feel the same. Um, So I think from a Connor perspective or from a license compliance perspective, we really try to add value wherever. I would like to see wherever there's three things: where there's a running royalty rate, where there's a license agreement, hopefully with audit rights. Yeah, you'd be surprised. I think I've once in my professional career found a license agreement without audit rights. So that's it's good that it remains a minimum kind of event, as well as revenue, as time. So those three things we find are necessary for license compliance from a royalty audit perspective to make sense. So as the firm has kind of been expanding within certain verticals, and we've kind of found, let's say, a secret sauce where we're able to really drive that value forward. I was looking into also delving into different verticals which have those characteristics. And then on that path, led me to find Younes as well, who, if I'm saying this right, agrees with the value proposition and let's say the need for our type of services, or at least the framework around what we're doing in the broader marketplace.
If I may further comment, I fully agree. And what I was convinced since years of the importance of royalty compliance audits and so on, because I faced it as a licensee and as a licensor in the past. And what I think is important is to have different expertise involved in such compliance programs and audits. Obviously, Thomas is someone who is more finance guy than I am, while I'm more a industry expert. I have a biochemistry background. I've been working in the biotech space for now more than 20 years. And I think that it is important, if you want to how the things working well, to look at the books, to look at the technology, to look at the patents, to look at the contract terms. And this is something that is synergetic, and that we are doing better together than each on our own. That's why we're collaborating since so long.
Got you. Okay, that's really fascinating, and I think it's obviously that that you need such competency, and that for a technology transfer office, this is not really something which is at hand and which is typically available. Okay, got.
Even in the industry, I've been in the TTO offices only for 8 years, and I moved to the industry.
Okay.
And most of the industries, including large ones, because I've been in small, medium, and very large companies, there are very few ones that have this expertise in place and dedicated to such topics.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean that is exactly my experience when we're talking with companies, and that this is a very specific field, and it has a value itself that when you have an expert in place who is so bringing all that expertise from all the different cases and can help in such a situation, because even as an industry, you just see your licensing contracts and has no experience from other ones. So this accumulation of know-how, I think it's very, very important in that case. So you said so my understanding is you you license in different industries. So it's pharma, it's biotech, it's life science. And so I'm a theoretical physicist, so I'm not really familiar with that different industries and the different business logic in the industries. So what is your experience when it comes to licensing? Is that different there? Are there different logics? What is? I mean, for me, it sounds more or less the same. Um, uh, what what is when in your experience on these differences?
Well, I would say it's not related to the industries, but rather the differences lies more in the regulatory statuses of the products that you are licensing.
Okay.
Actually, there are large differences between the regulated products, so let's say drugs, implantable devices, in vitro diagnostics, and non-regulated ones, such as research tools, biomanufacturing processes, and so on. So regulated products have more development steps, and accordingly, the agreements are usually more complex. You have longer delays, and that also leads to also more complex revenue schemes, more milestones, also the reimbursement or not non-reimbursement of certain products will have an impact, mainly on the diligence obligations and on the type of revenues that you can expect. So that's the main difference. There are nevertheless some differences between, for example, in vitro diagnostics and pharma, because in pharma, usually the agreements are almost all the time exclusive agreements, while in diagnostics,
Which kind of agreement?
pharmaceutical ones for drugs.
Yeah. Okay.
They are often exclusive. The amount of investment that is needed to bring a drug to an approval is so high that usually there is only all exclusive agreements. From time to time, it is split in terms of territory, saying North America, Europe, with different licenses, but there is no non-exclusive agreements or less non-exclusive agreements for drugs. While in diagnostics, for example, or in other biotech technologies, you see more of these non-exclusive licenses, including service licensing. While obviously in drugs you don't have services, but in diagnostics you have, where you have someone sending you a sample, you do the service and render a result, and you may have several labs being licensed the same technology to perform the same test, since it's usually near the patient and it's not centralized worldwide, but you have different kind of licenses.
Okay. Is that in different regions for different applications, or why they are different?
For different application, for different regions, or just non-exclusive. In the US, you have this CLIA lab system. This is hospital laboratories, and you have to serve everybody. So and when a test is in the guidelines, everybody should be able to perform it because all the doctors will need it. So instead of granting an exclusive license to one laboratory, you are granting hundreds of licenses. It used to be a lot the case until 2015, 16 in the US, before the Myriad Supreme Court case law, because we had a lot of licenses linked to biomarkers, and everybody was needing to have access to such biomarkers.
Yeah, I got you.
Nowadays, not anymore the case. The Myriad case law just made these biomarker patents invalid in the US because it is considered as law of nature. But it used to be a lot the case. But nevertheless, you still have technologies that are used beyond biomarkers that are patented and licensed.
Got you. Okay, okay. Um, uh, what is your perspective on that, Thomas? Is your experience when you're working in that different areas, is it also from a compliance monitoring side different, or is it straightforward?
So I guess how we see it is again, I think if you're talking about audits and royalty audits, we always like to talk about it from a proactive royalty auditing framework or a methodology. If it's reactive, then there's still value, but the proactivity around the methodology is really what differentiates it from, something where somebody is potentially maybe caught off guard in terms of why the audit is happening. So if you frame it as a best practice and you move forward with it from a perspective of this is due diligence and this is scrutiny that needs to be done, because ultimately the reality of the matter is that, yeah, as Younes was just alluding to, is that the complexity within the licensing industry, and this is industry agnostic, is that the complexity of getting it right is just so high. So the cost of getting it right is also very high, which means that it's not a priority to get it exactly right. And it makes sense that it's not a priority because ultimately you have your businesses to run, you have your own thing to focus on, your core focus, which is running the actual business that you're running.
Yeah.
And the royalty rate, which is often more of I wouldn't say it's necessarily an afterthought, but it is something that people try to get to the best of their ability. But because of the complexity, the ERP systems aren't built for capturing all of this precisely. There's changes in contracts, there's amendments. There are people that leave the company that haven't done the handover in a way that is necessarily, let's say, appropriate for the actual capturing of the royalties themselves. So there's all of these, like, let's say, reality-driven components that once the contract goes alive, if you will, is kind of an afterthought. And what we see often, and this is maybe answering, kind of tying it back to what you asked me in the beginning, Alex, is that it is industry agnostic from that perspective, because these are all realities that every licensing company has to deal
Yeah.
with.
Yeah, I got you. Got you. Okay, understand that. So, a different thing is, so I would assume that quite often licensing people are either on the licensor side or on the licensee side because of the business model of the company. But in your case, Younes, we have the situation that you're sitting on both sides of the desk,
Yeah.
and that is a fascinating situation. And what would you say? What is the difference here when it comes to the negotiation, whether you offer a license or you have to take a license?
I would say there is not so much differences. The importance when to make it work well, there is a real importance of the preliminary due diligence that often the licensee does in order to check whether or not they should take a license, that licensor a bit lack to do. But actually entering into a negotiation room without preparing, without knowing well your technology, its strengths, the IP strength, the market need for it, medical need, and so on is absolutely important. And also the license monitoring afterward is extremely important in both cases. But in all cases, what I would say is that every license negotiation is different, and actually your bargaining power is not the same. So it's for a specific license negotiation, you have a specific bargaining power. If you are doing stick licensing with someone already infringing as a licensor, you're stronger. When you are a licensee acquiring early stage technology licenses, while not everything is proven, while the patent is not granted, and so on, you are the guy with the check and they can sign it. So it's easier. So overall, I would say being on the licensee side is often easier, but it's definitely deal dependent, and what is important is to prepare well and to remember that a license is not a signature. A license is a long-term partnership where you should also focus on the life of this partnership and build a strong relationship with your partner, not your opponent, your partner.
Yeah,
Right.
got you. Absolutely. And that's the difference to a transaction orientated business, obviously. And that and where there you come into play, right, Thomas? Because
Yeah.
at the end you have to take care that these long-standing relationship is on safe ground, so to speak, that both sides understand again and again that there lies some value in it for both sides, and even more than just using the technology and as a starting point for further innovation and other aspects.
Right. Yeah, and I think two things came to mind for me as I heard Younes kind of talking there. Is one, in this kind of deal environment, which is also a very M&A rich environment, I believe, where a lot of these deals are also contingent on the ability to monetize on those licenses, not only from an act like in terms of like an operational running royalty rate perspective, but also from an M&A perspective. And if you're going into this as a deal maker or as either licensor or licensee, you'd want to know that you're paying the right value in terms of a potential valuation down the line as well. So imagine if you're doing M&A and the company you're buying, the licensing revenue has been underestimated by 5 or 10%. That would very much impact the valuation of that deal itself. So plus the fact, then maybe tying it back to the relationship aspect, where these are very highly sensitive, confidential environments as well, where which is understandable. There's a lot of at stake here in terms of the R&D that's been done, the money that's been put into these things. So you cannot send, or you could, but it wouldn't be advisable to send someone of your competitors to go and audit your books, because that kind of defeats the purpose. Having an independent auditor like us, I'm not saying it has to be us, but like us, to come in and do that review from an independent perspective. And that's ultimately what I think is the value, is the differentiator, where you go into this knowing that there is a process that is meant to protect both sides. It's not meant to favor licensee. It's not meant to favor licensor. It's meant to do the due diligence and the scrutiny on where the revenue had to be. And if it went, in a sense, I wouldn't say wrong, but people have misunderstood certain things, which happens all the time, at least there's a mechanism in place to correct that error and to have a good faith discussion moving forward on the basis of that audit report.
Yeah, got you. So,
sorry, I didn't
yes,
interrupt. I just wanted to share a personal experience. Some 15 years ago, the company I was working with was acquired, and the acquirer just afterward they did an audit of all our out licenses, and it went well. But I was astonished that they spent so much time in auditing our out licenses. And when I asked the question, they just shared with me that they've acquired a year before a comparable company in the UK, and that half of the licenses were not paid at all because nobody took care of them, because nobody was asking for the reports and so on. So that was good news actually for the acquirer, because it's often multiples of the revenues that you are paying. So they've acquired this company cheaper, but for the acquiree side, they definitely lost value in that.
absolutely, and my experience is that this is not a rare case. So that having really an overview of all these licensing relationships and handling them in a proper way, that is really a business. And quite often you make your license and let it run, so to speak. I mean, and that is the opposite of managing it. So, but that leads me to these aspects of when licensing contracts are negotiated. You said, Thomas, that there are high stakes, obviously, and often it is the access to a technology or to a business model, to a market. So people really think hard on that. What what they would like to see. But as Younes said, I have the feeling that sometimes it is not seen as a continuous relationship. So people have the tendency to say, okay, when the contract is finished, the deal is done. But it is an ongoing deal, and things happen. And you said, Thomas, the business reality is changing over this contract.
Right.
And what is your experience? Is it normal to discuss these compliance aspects, these monitoring aspects? Is that normal to integrate that early, or is it a kind of afterthought? So after a certain experience, you would like to change then the contract to integrate anyhow this monitoring function. So how is that happen in reality?
Yeah, good question. I think ultimately, we can't prophesy the future. So I think it's always good to have those things in place if you're aware of them, and to have those things from an error correction perspective, because otherwise the value of both the licensor and licensee is left to its own devices, while what you ideally want is to have those collaborative efforts actually multiply the value of these individual companies, so they are kind of synergetic in the marketplace. So if you have that mindset in the contract ideally, but ultimately if an audit needs to be done, and what comes out of that audit is, all right, things went a little bit kind of on the wrong side there, but that's good over there, and we misunderstood this. We find this all the time when we have our audits, is that licensees were unaware of certain things that were in their contract, or were informed that that wasn't important, or were informed that certain things had to be interpreted differently. So just from a perspective where both parties can always come to the table and renegotiate potentially, or just clarify things, typically, that just allows for a much healthier relationship, rather than waiting 10 years until there's a red flag. Really kind of an event that makes you want to audit reactively rather than proactively. And then you uncover that there is a massive discrepancy. And you could, in some cases, I've seen potential bankruptcy come to to play, because of the variances in the reportings was just so astronomical. Unintended. So having that proactive mindset, and just having audit rights within the contract, I think if you have those basics, you're covered, at least for the portion of what the license agreement is in itself, and you're always kind of set up for renegotiating based on the changing dynamics of the industry itself.
Yeah. Younes, obviously, here in where you're working right now, you are aware of these monitoring aspect. Otherwise, I wouldn't have you as a guest today. But what is your experience in your former positions in the industry? So is it in an early phase really? Do companies think about that aspect, and that this relationship has to be monitored?
Not as often as they should. It is often the case, but not every time. And I strongly recommend for all important agreements where you are expecting large revenues and complex markets, type of products, and so on, to even have a self-auditing clause, saying that the licensee shall audit itself every other year or every 2 years, just to make sure that everybody is in line. And now, in all the cases that I've seen in my career, it was just one time where someone was really cheating and willfully cheating. But all the other cases, and some of them were extremely important, were involuntary mistakes. You've unlicensed a technology. No one wants the R&D guys that if they use this technology in other products, there will be royalties. So you pay for the first product, while your R&D has developed and put it on market second, third, fourth product, but no one is aware that you should pay royalties on that. And 5 or 10 years later, the discrepancies are just huge. But it's not cheating. So if you have this in place, if there are discussions, monitoring systems, just steering committees, self-auditing, things like that, it definitely helps. And I have to admit myself, when self-auditing myself, I found some discrepancies because the CRM system was not set it the right way, and we had different royalty rates depending on the territories, and we're not paying the right ones because of the CRM and the automated request.
Yeah,
and it's not because it's a self-audit. Just to add, I think it's not because it's a self-audit that you have to do it yourself, right, Younes? I think the contract also allows for a third party potentially to come in and do that for you in case you have too much going on. So I think that maybe is something noticed. I think sometimes companies get a little bit overwhelmed with, an audit, what's that going to look like? I have my internal resources. They have a lot of high priority things going on. Then of course you do. That makes complete sense. So that's why a third party like us, right, could come in and kind of alleviate there as well.
Yeah, and I think the point which you mentioned, both of you mentioned, so it's not necessary that it is an intention to cheat or intention to misbehave. It is simply the reality, and the other thing, the other aspect for me, one of the take-home messages is that can accumulate to such a number that you get really trouble. And that is the next point, that over the time, so it's not this one-time transaction to pay the right price. So this is an accumulation over a long time, and that can really make problems when it's very late that you realize that you misinterpreted the contract.
Right.
I mean, that's
And just maybe talk about the numbers, Alex, here for a second. Across the industry, I think 85% of licensees typically misreport to a material variance, and I think out of 10% have a variance of more than 100% of the royalties they actually reported themselves to begin with. So again, it's not about bad faith or good faith. We always assume good faith, and we always go into from a relationship perspective. But the reality is just that it's a nightmare to keep track of. And sometimes licensees actually expect you to come and audit because they're aware of the complexities. And when we come in, sometimes we get the message kind of saying, "Hey, why has it been so long? Why didn't you do this earlier?" And we kind of talk to them for the first time about the contract, where sometimes they've kind of felt left alone by licensor as well. So we do see that also from that perspective, that licensees also welcome these things because they equally want clarity. I don't think any licensee wants to be 10 years down the line audited and then a potential number that could financially really put you down.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean that's what you said. I think that rings really a bell. So that you say, don't leave me alone with the contract. So that it is really necessary to get that in reality explained and controlled and monitored, that the things run smoothly in the right way. That is something completely different from an external examination, right? So that's a completely different perspective on the thing. So one aspect which I experienced many times is that licensing professionals, when they so IP experts who make a negotiation, so they want to achieve a best possible outcome, and this is they make a lot of effort to get a perfect contract, so to speak, perfect agreement, but even this, because it's a project, so the project is making the negotiation, yeah, and the outcome of the negotiation is the contract. But then the real project starts, and this is this licensing relationship between these two parties with all the complexities which then come into this relationship and this game. And do you think that these post signature licensing management, so in terms of maintaining these the relationship, that this is seen as not very important, or do you think that should that even in the negotiation you should have a stronger focus on that you see that the future will change the reality, and then the contract has to be adapted anyhow?
I definitely do. Well, let me speak first, if you agree, Thomas.
Go
But
for it.
obviously, as licensing executives, often our bonuses are tied to the number of agreements that we have signed,
Yeah.
not on what happens next. And this is definitely a mistake, because what happens next will last for the next 20 years if it's an early stage technology. And we have to make it work. So definitely, I think it's really important to focus on that during the negotiation and the just the signature, but also afterward. And often, what I do when negotiating a license is that I do agree with the licensee or licensor, or the other party on what we'll do next. Have a steering committee meeting regularly. Also, what I do is that I prepare executive summaries for all the departments of the company, summarizing for them the main terms, obligations, rights, and so on that are of their business, and also send them Outlook invitations. So there is a reminder. You should have this feedback at that time. You should have this report at that time. You should provide this to your partner at that time, and so on. And that's extremely important. And also, when the license is running, you should continue monitoring it. It's not just the first 2 weeks you send your summaries and so on, but check on a regular basis that everything goes well and address immediately any issue, any missing or incomplete report, any claim of third-party potential infringement, any risk of conflict. If there is a risk of conflict, we should immediately address it, escalate it, especially if you have an escalation clause, and obviously either audit your licensee if you are the licensor, or self-audit yourself before you are in trouble when you're the licensee. Everybody has to build this partnership, because each time the licensee wins, the licensor wins, and the other way around. We are actually, it's a marriage, and if you want to keep married, you must show love from time to time, not only the first day. And this is the way you continue growing for both parties, and you can also do the better good. We are in life sciences. Whenever we work well, we save lives.
Right.
Yeah, I think this incentive structure is really a big point. That you shouldn't be incentivized just for making contracts, so for living contracts, and that is really a different thing. And I can only support your example with a long marriage. So I'm doing that for 20 years now. I agree 100%.
Well, I've never heard the marriage analogy before. I don't know if you would necessarily audit your wife, but I think from the analogy I typically use is the flying a plane analogy, and having a dashboard where you can actually know how to land and take off. And but ultimately the spirit of, I think, what we meant is the same, is where you want to ensure that you have data that you're also working off of, and that you're not just relying on trust. And I think, I know Younes, you and I, a little bit of a quarrel about this, that I think Ronald Reagan said it, trust but verify. And I think there's truth to that statement, because if you're only flying the plane on trust, then it's a bit it's a bit difficult to know where you're going, in the sense that there's no feedback loop, there's no feedback mechanism. And I think what the audits now provide, and it's not to say that people can't do this themselves, it's just that we have developed those in-house expertise as a focus area for us, and other companies have their own focus areas. So I think it's important that the companies keep doing what they're good at, and they keep investing in those things, and let us kind of handle creating those dashboards where we can then show both parties where there's improvements to be done, essentially.
Got you. So we have Tella in the audience, and she had a question about the WHO PIP framework. Do you know that, and what do you think about that?
I have to admit, I'm not familiar with the PIP framework, so I prefer not to say things that I'm
Okay.
really comfortable with.
Which you regret later on.
Yeah.
Okay, got you. Is that familiar to you, Thomas?
It is not. No, I would also have to do some research. Yeah.
Okay.
No.
So
But thank you for the question.
We have the chance to answer later on in the chat, and so I will check that also, whether this is really helping here. There is another question which I would like to bring up the last minutes, and this is the question of artificial intelligence. So is to you both? Is it used? So is it used, and is it helpful? And in what kind of use cases do you have of artificial intelligence in these licensing relationships?
I will comment. I've seen it a lot in diagnostics, both in vitro diagnostics, radiology. Well, it has been years now that it is a lot. There's a lot of investment there, and nowadays we see that often these AI-based systems are beating the doctors in terms of diagnostics. And also, we used to have to monitor 1, 2, 3 parameters for a patient. Now, with artificial intelligence, we can handle hundreds. And this is more and more coming, and it's getting used. There are some, free of license softwares that are used by a lot of players. Some others are. A lot of others are keeping secret their tools and the way they work, but we see more and more things based on that. There's also not for the for drug discovery, plenty of work done, and I've been working a few weeks ago on a license agreement where people develop some tools that allow to screen potential drug candidates quite faster, and it's extremely costly to screen drug candidates. And if you can narrow from 1,000 candidates to 50,
there were wonderful publications from Gemini, Google Gemini, about that, about drug screening.
So
Thomas,
Thomas, more and more videos.
We just a short answer, please, because we're running out of time. But I think the question was more whether AI tools are used for the monitoring, and is that already a use case?
So for us, we're constantly looking at ways to leverage AI. So I think it is a priority in the firm for us, and we are making sure that our strategies are aligning with that. So I think from that perspective, we're making sure that wherever those efficiencies can be done, they will be done. So it's basically being developed right now, Alex. And in the meantime, we are making sure that we're investing in those areas. I can't say too much about that currently, but they are being used.
Okay. So we have to set up a meeting in the future to talk about that. That's also wonderful and very fascinating. So
in the not too distant future, yeah.
Thank you very much for you to discussing that with us, with me, and the audience, and to all other in the audience. Please make sure so. Thomas is IP subject matter expert. I showed you what he's doing on the digital IP lexicon, and you are invited to join us. We have the call out there for subject matter experts right now, and I would be happy to work with you too for European companies. So thank you very much, and enjoy the evening. And Thomas, we have the next meeting, the next live show at the 3rd of September, when I'm right. I'm looking forward to that. And to the others, bye-bye. Thank you very much. Thank you, Younes. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you.